City Council regular meetings of the roof control, six last location, pledge of roles, location by Mr. Lopez, whenever you're ready, sir. I got somebody going to translate it for me. Okay. No. Okay. Let's pray. Ahora, Heavenly Father, this time we come into the presence. Gracias. We come to thank you for the opportunity allow us in this place.
Listen to this at the same time. Well, I should be one of the first.
For your wisdom to operate and operate each life. Each life that has to be in this in the city. Thank you for the God. All the things that we have for the city. We ask you for you to give the wisdom. For each of the person that has to make a decision of this city. You will give them the strength. I've heard them for your presence. Father God, we thank you for this name. Amen. May be seated. Thank you, Pastor. Please call the roll. Anything subsequent to the posting or mission?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have several documents that are placed on the dais before you this evening. It is for item C7. It's a property organization letter. The second one is the zone presentation for item D11.
With that, we hold a very special proclamation. 45. This is the proclamation organized for terrorism. We have Chief Marcy here tonight. We'll say anything to this before we do the proclamation.
Sure, I'll just go so we have to recognize this because this was a public education. We tried to send them the idea of the people that are worried about, so we tried to tell the kids to get them out and talk to what that's say something and all that stuff. So that's what I want to do. When she's in there somewhere, you know, you had that, she was at her house. Her sister, when she got her sister called 911 to get us to a house to help fix the problem, which the mom was also there at the end. So just wanted to give her a room and say that she did good. I'm sure her mom is still in the same kind of idea, but she's watching over.
Yeah, the proclamation. 6/12/25 was covered. A courageous young individual demonstrated the exceptional presence of working in response to a situation. With the actual and shift of material response of some personnel, control to the safety. So the bottom and more of the so you compass a quick sample of the surely serve as an inspiration to all. All settlements to settle the responsible actions and reasons. Okay.
Oh, come on, stop. And you'll want
I'm bad.
I'm sure also.
Very good. So, sweep for item 6 through.
Well, actually, yes. Is Miss Bam on Zoom? Okay, I just want to know how if she's supplying porta potties to that event, or are they going to be using the porta potties in the area of the businesses? I'm gonna unmute her. Yes, we should have approved the other ones.
Yeah.
Do we wait for that while we're waiting?
She might be able to say anything.
Jane, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry about that.
She's on.
Jane, did you want to show us a question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was asking, are you going to be supplying porta potties for your event?
No, I'm not. Last year, we did not supply any porta potties and it wasn't an issue. We have multiple downtown stores that will be participating during the event, so they're more than welcome to use those restrooms. I did talk to the Jacaranda. I believe they're open, and then there are 2 restrooms. I think there's restrooms in Donaldson Park and right by the railroad track.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
So second, let's call for questions. So let's call.
Councilmember Brown? Yes. Councilmember June? Yes. Councilmember? Yes. Sim?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Continue.
Advertised and bids were received at the April 14th, 2025 council meeting and rejected by the council. Staff was directed to re-advertise the RFP. Bids were received on May 30th at 2:00. 4 bids were opened at that time. I think it's important to note that a separate bid was occurring the day previously for a strategic plan, and bids for the law firm investigation RFP was mistakenly put in with the strategic plans. It was received on time for the investigation RFP. So that one was realized until June 5th, but it was included in the score. That was Fox Rothschild. They received an overall score of 266. Gilchrist Law Firm received a score of 2. Carlton Phillips received a score of 243. 17. Due to and subsequent to posting, I was also been disqualified due to affiliations in Polk County.
Okay. Yes.
Do we have a Gilchrist Law Firm on Zoom? Just okay.
Yes, I'm here from the Gilchrist Law Firm.
Yes, do we have any law firms in the audience? That I'm not. I don't see. Is there anyone that in the audience? I wouldn't know what their playthrough look like.
I will say it is very difficult for us to hear. There seems to be some feedback, so
No, I just wanted to go there because they were doing that over.
Is there any questions? So, yeah, let's go on.
I don't have any questions, but I'll go and get this started because I don't think this is kind of an elephant. Selection for Gilchrist is for Gilchrist Law Firm. It seems they're straightforward. They Polk counties as we requested. I like the references. I looked all over the for anything that was negative, found nothing. They have a great plan of action laid out in the packet. The reviews were good. They were the only ones that sent a representative to bid. I like the willingness to provide the weekly updates to the council. I also like this firm specializes in real estate and is a former JAG officer. So that's my pick.
Okay. We know what's accomplished from this investigation.
I think we've got some titles. We're just trying to find out if the transfer of the Brickell building was handled without fraud. Torture everything else.
Mayor, I also would like to say something about Gilchrist. I do like their team. I too did some research on the Gilchrist, and I compared them. Took a while. I compared them with the other law firms. I didn't know that Weiss Serato had been disqualified, but I knew that the other one had, because when the scoring chart was done, it pretty much said that it was disqualified. So I pretty much did all of them except for that particular one, and I wasn't sure why they was disqualified, but of course I just found out. One of the things, even though Gilchrist didn't,
Sarah, can you turn the microphone on? Let's see what I scored. Step by step. So questions of what was going to be. And I too, so I very questions. I see no launch. This council still a lot of council. I'm sure, but this one. It doesn't matter what it's about conversation from staff. We're talking about there's a I make the motion to form the Gilchrist Law Firm in the amount of, what was it, 64,000? Motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? I just have to make one comment. The next time before, I was going to go forward with somebody that was more reasonable. But I think that this is a lot of money for our taxpayers to have to pay for.
But I don't think that, especially those that made the motions are going to be satisfied with the results. In fact, I'm pretty sure that, there's going to be people who aren't satisfied, people that made more satisfied, but whether there's a road to satisfaction, I'm not too sure. So I think that's a lot of time to spend, something that, I don't think it's up to the judge, but if that's what they want to spend, then that can be, that's fine, that's their thing, they're allowed to. I think it's spending way too much money, and I don't think the results are going to be happy by everybody. That's all I have to say.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. I'm not obviously go to the allegations or whatever like I've historically said, but you've got two reports that basically said that nothing's wrong with either one, that you continue to go forward with it. So it seems more like a personal vendetta type thing. And you're willing to spend at least at a minimum $64,000 on it to get the same answer. Part of your original motion was to send it to the county, and the county beat you to it, did the investigation. So it seems like this is an investigation. You don't investigate yourself. Investigation, they didn't know anything. They didn't know what was going on. And it's for them to do their own investigation, the attorney to sign off on, their assistant attorney, I don't know who she was. It's just kind of, it seems foolish. So that's my, I'll go to my opinion. So.
Well, I think it's also worth saying that the, I mean, I won't be mentioning, but the staff is so deathly afraid to touch us with a 10-foot pole and even look at it because they're so afraid that they're going to be fired without cause by this council, because they've already watched this council fire us without cause very long ago. So I think it's a shame that what this is spiraling into. I think it's a shame that the staff feel the way they do. They don't feel like they can say what they want to say and with their honest opinion in these matters. So it's shameful. They can't get off. So we have a motion. We have a second. Other questions? I'll follow up to that. Maybe advice. We have excellent staff. I'm very proud of each of you. I trust you. I appreciate all of you, and I think they have someone in the staff that she's put together. Some can less, some can have some, but the implication that they have and the infections they have on top of it for somebody the citizens a little bit. I believe we have a great staff and the biggest civil injury on top. So thank you very much. Great. Yeah. So, staff. I think the city council got a traffic fire staff. That's the city council's job. So was it. So if the staff is doing the job, but I yeah, most anything else. Sir, Councilmember McGuire, I'll abstain due to allegations of family member being involved. Councilmember Merker, that's Councilmember Drew, Deputy Anderson. Motion passes. So before we go on, it's funny, actually, we should bring that up because I read an article that kind of struck very similar to the same happening down in another city. The city council ended up firing their city manager in order to slow down the investigation. For the record, I'm not making any allegations, but I'm just saying I would love that our council members would ever stoop to that level of ridiculous. So I'd like to make a motion
that during the entire course of this building investigation and until the city's role in the investigation is concluded, there's to be no adverse action taken against Dr. Kelly unless she violates her contract, the city charter, Florida statutes, federal regulations, or laws. Is that a motion? That is a motion. I'll second.
Is that motion? Yeah, that's not trying to set with the basis of this. The charge there. As far as my voting is, should abstain. I would just abstain because it's still related to. Got it.
I'll abstain from this one too, but just for the record, just for your information, that's still some more stuff. Getting stuff that's being made up. Because what's being made up? What is being made up? By posting an article about Key West and everything else. What's the article? Really, Shelley? Yeah, tell me, you posted it. Okay. Well, they're sitting in the back right there with the cameras because they don't think it's going to be in my face. Read other than post them. I think it's a coincidence that it's the same article. Weird coincidence that he would bring it up tonight too. To same. Anyway, the vote. I'm absolutely not. I have absolutely nothing against Dr. Kelly. I gave her higher ratings than any of the rest of you guys. All of this is the same drama that's been drawn up by the same people and perpetuated, all based on a lie with no truth. That's what racist.
All right, so I have a motion.
Councilmember O'Brien, I'll abstain again for the same reason I just said. Councilmember Trump, yes. Councilmember, yes.
I support Sharon and much of that to some sort of yes.
I was thinking relates to it, that's the issue.
Motion passes.
Yes. All right. Thank you. I'm going to allow those. It's 34, 12, 9, and then rolls over the 3 or 4. That's streets. As I understand the screen, presentation, questions. Adjusted to just a little backward. So tower, the wind, 30%. The 24 specs that order. So with that said,
Institutional. So that's true, which is still in this location skills staff didn't feel that this was a particular location, so for the purpose of something for industrial in the future. So just five and then implementation sounds actually like there's a thing just in terms of this is looking at the sounds that also comes out through the south side is the homes kind of show sounds and sounds and the sounds of citizens for the property. Something sort of residential to the west to sorry to still a town if that's how it comes along, it's going to fall out and fall itself. So in this case, that separation is still to the residential properties. There's 34 feet. So the same essentially collapse it on the compound property. Staff is also structures from tablets just comes out services sheriff's office just access to the site comes through the portion of the sheriff's office off of Pleasant Street. So in terms of transportation traffic, so folks stable to go up to town. The sheriff's office to make sure that some conditions to be sure that conflicts with activities. Actually, they did some let's go through this quickly. It's page 2, 2 pages essentially essentially shows the as well as the sheriff's office to the south and facility access from the sheriff's driveway. It is a compound that has a lot of those. 60 feet structure and that. Essentially, sheriff's office. Specific questions about time moments. It's just going to catch up awareness. Just saying just to make sure there's second, that's a consideration of consideration of obstruction of the response that was provided by the applicant, and essentially there's evidence required. We got that, and so so the process I had this explanation and response. Just adds, I guess, attention to that time. One. So let's start with this last game of questions. That was a question to put me on the top for safety purposes. To put me on the top. We took that response. Also, consideration of that's something we consider.
I'm sorry. For example, so that was my one section. Was that the management company said that they will request a visual paper, even though I know by reading what was in the top of the package that they are required. I don't understand if why would not want but one if we required which question one. I mean, what's how would that do for them to put a big line on it?
So, specific questions about just what's called everyone did not request one. CC does not recommend it. I'll defer to the applicant on that. But I'm just simply following for just a second. I don't know, they not do as well. So that is, they've been some additional, like, because, it sounds like, but besides what we get out, that was too much of like, there's substantial, so that's what I.
Well, if they do it's on it, they'll know if it goes out. I mean, I'm just asking, right? If they are doing maintenance on it like they should, they'll know what's going on.
That's true. But the gentleman walks out, I saw the responses they gave that you thought that we could hide some habits by thinking that they were a different height than what they were. I don't really know if you put an issue to me, I appreciate it.
Yes, my name is Aaron. I'm with the about 7 from Orlando, Florida, and I'm representing that wireless. Also, and we'll look to me here tonight. We can help answer any questions that we need as well. As to the beacon, I guess the bigger issue is we think that it's in conflict to ask them to put on the tower that's not required to be would actually be in conflict with the ordinance, which the ordinance that relates to telecommunications towers states that they should only do that in 2 circumstances: to ensure total safety, and if the FAA requires them. The FAA letter that it provided, which from 401 of the agenda, states that based on this evaluation, marking and lighting are not necessary for aviation safety. So doing this just because would be in conflict with the actual ordinance, which says we don't want lighting unless it was required of the FAA. We don't want to ensure total safety, which the FAA is not required here. Towers, all of this my firm has and my client has, and with a tower that's not required, it's highly disfavored in circumstances. The confusion would be getting the issue that you asked would be that this tower, the FAA only requires towers to be lit. It's not above 200 feet, so lighting a tower that's under 200 feet. Sometimes you see the pilot to think they need higher than they are. If they're, I guess they could use our instrument if they're flying the stroll, that could be a scenario where they saw the tower, they assume that they're at 200 feet because that's where the towers are lit.
I think those airports to like 800 or 1,000 feet. So no, not they wouldn't be that airport. If they were at 200 or 300 feet from that area, it would be a big problem. So. Great questions.
Yeah, I got a question for him. Sir, what type of material is this tower made of? So this tower sits. How does it storm? Hurdles.
So I'm following
I do. So I know that you have checked with the FAA, you checked with our ordinance, but you checked with the airport. Did you actually talk to any pilots to ask what their opinion would be on the rate? If that would be a or a help for them? Okay, and my other question was, the cities, they have the poles decorated to look like trees. And it kind of proves to be like less of an eyesore than a big pole sticking up. Is that something that your client would consider?
What I would say on that issue, I know that when and I was here 2 years ago, Marjorie came to me, asked for permission to begin this process. And I know that was discussed, and the 2 issues that were raised then was when the type of tower that's being built with 5Gs, it doesn't work so well with camouflaging. Oftentimes when we do camouflaging, it is more majority. We don't see without camouflaging. And that's why I think that also through the head process, But with the negotiations, lease, it ultimately arrived at the galvanized structure, which I believe was specified in the lease.
Okay,
As I'm saying, it's, actually quite a big town. Sheriff, you can go down to the street, please.
And just adding that the two carriers that we have committed to the tower are AT&T, obviously, which is the propagation actual gap in coverage, which was discussed previously, and then also Verizon. Verizon's a committed carrier that would be added to this entire.
so just so just so I have my information correct, the city's gonna make under $900 a year on this project, right? From leasing the land. No? So, $1,000 for their due diligence process and it's $50 a month. See, it goes up by 3%, right? Every year. Okay, so then there's additional antennas that have been added from additional carriers, that's extra $50, right? Okay, so are those gonna be increased also, the extra antennas from the other carriers, they'll be increased also, 4%? Okay. And how much does the city get from the telecommunication tax? It's 6%. 6%, okay. So is that less or more than we'll be paying in the contract? I mean, the lease, to lease the property, is that less or more than you're making for the lease that we receive? The 6% is to us, okay? So it's on top in addition to the rent benefit. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Chris Downey, 109 Space Stroke. I do have an up area. I can tell you, just maybe check with the train flights that come in. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't 250 feet above houses in the area. And I agree with that. Well, I'm not challenging. Yeah, not doing either. Just my option to use on it is that we don't know. We turn around. Right. The sheriff's office. So I would definitely investigate that way. That's going further. But they are 50 low and they're training pilots. It's a concern. I'm sure not just for me, but we provide a lot in the area. So distance is well below 1,000 feet. So could be somebody to consider. But if it was off the pilot, I think it would be better for the pilot to see it. We actually bank around to the left and back to the airport, take off again for the same thing. So just avoid a caution. That's a good decision.
Got it. Any other questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Outside of those, something stands really relevant to the applicant and the response to that question. And we're providing the response, and I brought up the statutes if the council's interested in them. I'm not aware of any health concerns, and any that could, what I was getting at was the emissions, and those are an important consideration for the city council under federal law and brought the statutes if you'd like to see them. It's clear that federal law is the consideration of emissions for purposes of the placement of the telecommunication tower, and so does federal law.
All right. Something for options for putting ordinance number 13/1225.
Second that.
Geez, do you remember what's going on?
Yes, Councilman. Councilor. Motion passes.
All right, so let's leave main sound. For the future items, or is that to both? Got it. Well.
So 2020, the city of Avon Park entered to APDOT to maintain the lighting on SR 27, SR 17, and SR 64 within the boundaries of the city. This year we're looking to that agreement and the fee that would be paid to the city is $80,705 to maintain the fixtures.
Okay. Do you have any questions on the? I'm showing the sun, we can change in the light bulbs.
So sometimes we have to control that that can reach up tall enough to the fixture, but that's not every light.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question. Well, I'll ask that later because it's coming. I'll ask it later.
Okay. We have motions to approve for the transportation.
So
Second, second, last call for questions. So it was all.
yes, council. Yes, so I don't know if I was the only one that noticed it, but by on Main Street, but this cutting the red lights, or is that if they're out, if the lights are out at the red lights at Main Street and like traffic? Yes. So, okay. You know what? Because we had one of the green lights around. It's facing going out. It's like just FYI.
She doesn't know, she was not alone. Situation, such a sign. I still enough flow just to show this movement. State person. So that's what I thought this future.
Gary, does the pension pay for this or does the city? That pension account.
The civil interest.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jerry,
How often city to absorb pension?
I agree. Okay, any other questions? Ready for motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 13 small walk management.
So. Question second, last call for questions.
Seeing none, let's call roll.
Councilmember Brown? Yes. Councilmember Richard? Yes. Councilmember? Yes. Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so, state one. Sorry.
At the March 24th, 2025 City Council wastewater treatment facility advanced water treatment and expansion proposal to Kim so to finance a loan to pay for that. The loan is for $1.4 million, particularly to six that so it goes to the city is like $4,600. Yes.
Intentional to, announce that loan, like the minutes or quickly. That's just a low interest rate, but
It's extremely interest rate, it's 5%. And 5 payments of $8,676. But certainly to take that one.
just recommend.
I would recommend that.
So we have money in the budget left over for this year to pay it off.
This year, to first draw the money down to pay it back. So it'll go to next year's budget.
That
Questions? So, motion.
I make a motion to approve the 14 water state development by design.
second,
So, second, let's call the questions. Second, let's call the vote.
Councilmember Bell? Yes. Councilmember, yes. Councilmember, yes. And
Yes.
yes. Motion passes.
Chief?
So a lot of information is in the packet already, but I'll just give you a little summary. So I started this ALS last year, do you remember? We talked about it, we were thinking that we were going to have paramedics operating this year. That has not happened yet, simply because it's just been more hurdles than we thought it was going to be. So right now, we have a goal of starting in October to have, well, not really sure that's still going to happen. We have to rely on we keep under some signing off on stuff we're still working on. Some of the is just to give us a dollar amount that the city and the union can agree to get these people ready for when we can start, when we have a number agreed on.
okay. Questions? Start with one person at a time.
Well, we currently have that are certified paramedics. Which I remember last year, the side made to pay for one employee per year. So we currently have some finish certified. We have one in school that the city's paying for it, and we have another one in school that they're paying for on their own. So sometime around December to January, we will have 5 people certified.
So if we do that, then we can go ahead and put the material items on the truck that they need to do the job properly.
And, we got to get inspected by the state, we got to get some training, but we can only get signed off on the medical record. We're jumping through these hurdles, but yeah, that's our goal.
So, Chief, just at time.
All right.
Fine, but on the job. On the job, I didn't train them, I actually got there too. About the shift.
Yeah, the goal of 6, they shot of 2 on each shift. So there's no vacation, people get this sick. This ALS thing gets really complicated, but there are ways that we can on the ALS on certain days if people call out sick. So the count is also ALS, but the idea of us being ALS was more I arrived on something much quicker and much more frequently than they were earlier. So we were able to provide that service quicker. So the goal is to have something there, but the goal is to have more than one. More than one. which you can call calls. We have one call and then we say to another call. So the goal is to have more paramedics than equally. I mean, you don't want to say, oh, we don't have them today. But that's what the situation we're working with, until I can get more trained. We'll cost money and time.
So, let's say,
Well, yeah, it's taken to hourly. It's what we've talked about, but yes, the idea was that second amount was divided up in a period of roughly $30 when the one was. So yes, and we'll get to that, and then I'm going to be, yeah, they're not going to job to provide.
And now it's a challenge. Right. Okay. Towards them then.
There you go. Any questions? So,
I'll make the motion to D15, understand concerning paramedic incentive pay.
Have a second that. I'm sure. Have a second. Let's call for questions.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Chief, what's this kind of training? You say this paramedic is what? What? Are you?
sure, I know, they're ready to love to enjoy that.
I'm Lieutenant Pitch. I'm the seat shift lieutenant at the station, so tomorrow in my shift, but I think we got to answer some of your questions. So the school is about $1,400, usually takes a year. And there's a lot of things. So we're in County SOGs that has been approved by Dr. Gilhart. He's going to be our medical director. And there's all state orders of things we can do. So we're not going to carry other drugs because there's some VA requirement, maybe in the future, but there's things we're almost comparable to like an RN. There's some things RNs can push a lot more drugs than we can. But we have around 40 drugs under our license that we're allowed to do. You also sedate a patient, we're in full code. So
The top 5 life-saving measures that you would typically now would be.
we're the highest would probably be a no virus call. So giving that for CPR, intubating a patient, IVs, we could drill a patient if we have to. We can't get an IV, drill a needle into the vein. We won't be able to finish it up there. This will be the highest level of clinical training you can provide to the fire department. And is under the direction of a doctor. So if the doctor calls for something, medication or something, that RN then would be able to tell them to get that drug. Dictated over SOGs. Dr. Gilhart, medical director, has approved. So there's stating orders that we have to follow criteria a lot, and we have to stay on that track. So yeah, that's right. Okay. So like Chief was saying, he would like that tuber shift. So right now, if you go to the fire department, we have an engine stack and a brush truck that slide between the engine, a ladder truck, depending on the call that comes out. So that's the goal, the idea would be to have one paramedic per truck. Last time I was working, we had 3 calls at one time. So we had a medical call, the other 2 had a medical call, another call came out, we had to third call. We both had third call because there was a fire alarm that came out. We had to go to that. So that had become more frequent. I'm sure Chief before to show you how many times the call for appies.
Just have
I believe that's Chief's goal.
Well, that's the short-term goal. The long-term goal would be to have more paramedics on the forward shift.
There is some fire departments that to be hired is you have to have your paramedic already, or once you get hired, there's a 3-year period you have to become certified as a paramedic. I'm saying that we're so far behind. Sometimes I think we're ahead. this is just something that my city of Miami back in the 70s and 80s was the first department to implement paramedics. And it's slowly growing to where almost it's really fun department that doesn't have paramedics now. So
I'm just asking.
Well, go back to the category of multiple calls. I don't know if it was from the anymore, but it was pretty good time. Showing up to 80% of the calls prior to the ambulance showing up, which was used to providing ALS service. So we're getting there much better than them. And we are, like I said, getting these fundamental calls. I used to not do it a while ago. We can get a call and most of them not get another call, but that is becoming more so we have on one thing on call. The chances are going to freedom that we're going to get a second call with them.
I would say the outcomes of patient outcomes will get better, but it's hard to track that. There's some software that we have now that we kind of try to track, but it's going to take us some time to get used to it. And it's a real part of our, it get pulled from our reporting. So that if we do a patient care report, the hospital, that patient care report is tracked with the patient till they get discharged from the hospital. So if we think they're having a chest pain, we think they're having a heart attack, we could see the charts and see what the doctor diagnosed it was after when they get discharged. But right now, if someone calls for a no vitals call, like their CPR in progress, right now, you will get one paramedic from the county coming out on the ambulance. This would be typically how we respond. We send 2 people, and then the county send an ambulance that has a paramedic and an EMT. The paramedic has to start an IV, has to intubate the patient, has to push drugs, has to see if they're analyzing if they're going to shock or not shock them. It's just, this one, the more paramedics you have, all those things get done a lot quicker. So the outcome of patients is going to be better.
Okay. Not to mention what you said before, too much of that. This one, able to guys to take care of some of the not as critical instances like blood sugar and things like that. You can take care of that right now. But if it was like a sugar incident, you guys can have it taken care of it. Tell them once they didn't have to go, so they can take care of a critical patient.
Yeah, right now we're not able to do that, but in the future we will be able to. Yes.
769. Right now, because I thought we first for Hyde County, so where does it come from?
So those had a number of $8,000 a year. We took that number and divided it by 2 periods. So that number, if you times it by 3 periods, you should come to 8,000. But so now also changed it to actually be hourly. But I think this is getting the idea across that it's an $8,000 stipend that's going to be divided hourly. No. We're trying the best. So well, the version of the county with some of these things, like I've kind of talked about, we have to go through them. So our medical director was the same medical director as the county, the same as the city of Sebring. So he basically says, I have written the whole, like you talked about, the SOGs, the policies you have to follow. He written all that. When people said, we want to do this, he'll say, great, go to the county. I've already written it to the county. You have to get signed off by them. They're never going to do it. They've done it all. They've got trained. Those will know. So that's the process to do. When we said we wanted to do it, we had to do everything to the county. We had to get a serial consolidated, which is the policy that to be to be approved to do ALS. They have approved that. When we started on that process, the council then started the process internally, and then technically said they were ALS agents quicker than we did.
Okay. All right, that's a problem, right?
We're working on it.
All right, so we have a motion in a second already. Yeah, other questions? Let's call it.
Councilman, yes. Councilman, yes. Councilman, yes. So just motion passes.
Number 6. Across just the race and
It's thank you. So Tourism Development Council reached out to staff about the request from City of Sports to host the jet ski race. I understand it was held several years ago. The previous agreement was $30,000 to host this event to CBS. The TBC 20,000 of that, and it 10,000. I know that sounds like a lot, but we do get a 30-minute post event in the world or highlight of the city, and people all over the country will be watching the jet ski race and seeing how awesome the event is. So I think it's $10,000 well spent. Plus, we have the downtown, they'll be open since it's a 2-day event.
Okay. Questions?
No.
No. Okay,
I'll make the motion to approve the $10,000 for the D16 Pro Cross jet ski race.
Second was questions. See what's going on.
Councilman Ball, yes. Councilman Richard, yes. Councilman Ball,
What's yes or no?
but that was on the list. Definitely.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
I have a question real quick on that. The 30-minute interview they do afterwards, is that to interview the people in the city? Not people meaning council or staff, but the people participating in this and different areas in the city? It's a little better. I could get the information. Curious if you knew that's okay.
The CRA director could help put together something really pretty to put on that.
They said they had a fantastic time. I'm glad that they finally came back, and it was definitely great publicity on live TV or recorded TV for Avon Fox. So it's a plus all the way around. Yeah.
All right, anything else? Seeing none. Seeing updates.
Shuffle there, the article has been advertised, it's July. More exciting. Design request for proposals has been advertised for the shuffleboard, I'm sorry, and the splash pad. And lastly, I would just like to thank July from the conference location. Before we end up closing, I just have some things I want to discuss. Back to the events, we'll have some turns in the event request. Would it be good faith or a good idea to them to the letters of property usage agreements if they're in a private property? Or even that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, we're going to have an event, but we're going to have it on public, private property. We don't need any roads closed or anything," would it be a good idea to get as a requirement in letters? It's required that you turn in a letter from the property owner saying, "Yes, so and so has our permission to have an event." The Kelly's been doing that last several events. Right, and lots of those requests, but we did discuss this internally today, and we're going to add that as a requirement. Okay, so the other thing is, if it's all the board members agree, I'd like to have a workshop, because I'd like to hear the residents' opinions on sheriff's office increase versus having our own police department. I'd like to see what the residents think about that. So, I'll talk to Deputy Chair. So, compared to our police department, some type of workshop for the sheriff department. So, yes, so I will do the two show
Yeah, I mean, it comes up pretty regularly that there's a large, especially, they definitely want it. The next question is how much does it cost? And so if you're gonna have a workshop, you should probably have an idea what that costs. Otherwise, it's pretty close. So if you're gonna have it, I would say that cost estimate.
I would advise you to get your own information now. And also, I just think that this council should be responsible enough to start putting as much as we can. So for the future, if the next council decides yes, because I'm telling you, I'm going to be a really sell to increase it to 4 million. So it's going to take some serious negotiations. So then anyway, with that being said, so I'd like to do that. So the other thing is we have a public works department. Do we get revenue on that? How much is that? It's okay. So does anybody ever study on any of our billboards that we own as to like, are we being underpaid for something like that?
Probably. Yeah, they say this.
Well,
the rates change every year, and I doubt that what we ask for changes every year, so.
yeah. I don't know. That's just something that maybe we should look into. I mean, we don't want to get into the business of good things away.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's like a management group or something that does that. I mean, it's probably a very well vetted business, I'm sure.
So that's all. I got one question for the the general fund. Okay.
Okay, anything else for the city? Seeing none, to motion to adjourn. See you all. Thank you.